Jessica, welcome. Now tell me, how did a Celtic pixie like you become a world traveler, adventure writer, and outdoors woman?
It's absolutely genetic. My father is from New Zealand. His father was from New Zealand. And my grandfather was born in 1859 because of a lot of late marriages in the family. And he was a Victorian outdoorsman, a Victorian sportsman. He loved bird hunting and he loved big game fishing, and he retired in Honolulu, where my father was born, and was very famous for that. And in fact, I'm connected with him spiritually because he died when my father was 6, and of course, therefore, I never met him. But when I got my hands on his journals just about a year ago and read them all, we have so many things in common, including a very Victorian style of the great, the hunt and the fishing expedition, which really is more of a feminine way of doing things. If you think about it, it's more refined. It's more a lot of afternoon tea involved. It's kind of my style of outdoors activities.
So tell me, where did the title "Roll Around Heaven" come from?
Well, it's something my mother, which is where the art and literature parts came from. Something she used to say in cooking. She used to say when she was trying to make her mother's recipe for chicken and dumplings. Her mother, my grandmother, was Louisiana French and a fabulous backcountry cook. And my mother would be rolling out this dough, and she was always trying to make them flat and firm instead of puffy, these dumplings. And she would say, she'd say, you can roll around heaven or you can roll around hell, honey. The choice is yours.
You're a one-woman United Nations.
I am. I'm a walking UN. I've said that. There may even be Maori blood. That's another book. We'll find out.
Now, you had some mystical experiences that would have sent a lot of other people running to a shrink or possibly to the bottle. Did you have experiences in childhood that made you more receptive to them, or do you think your closeness to nature helped?
Both. My mother, although she never developed her spiritual, gifts, she saw and was aware of spirits, entities, when they were about. And I remember one of my uncles, Uncle Bernie, died in a tragic car crash when I was about 10 years old. And after that, every once in a while, my mother, she could smell him, she would say, "Oh, Uncle Bernie's here." And then my sisters and I we'd get up and tiptoe out of the room. But so it was very casual. I was raised with, an awareness, but it wasn't traded upon. It wasn't made into a big thing. And so I think that made it more comfortable to me. I think also my spiritual teacher in Roll Around Heaven, whom I call the Holy Pig Farmer, he believes from his 45 years of counseling people that these gifts, if you will, come down through bloodlines. And so I think I now know that through my mother's side of the family, it was common, at least with her sister and with my mother. And my grandfather, I was just describing in his journals, he's very fascinated by the spiritual traditions of the South Pacific. And I think he saw them too.
You just kind of let that little Holy Pig Farmer roll off your tongue.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yes. Well, the very beginning of the book, I'm teaching, this is in 1994, and I'm teaching at the University of Washington. I'm teaching advanced literary nonfiction writing. And I was looking for an inspirational teacher. Now, mind you, not a spiritual teacher. I was not interested in that. But I wanted someone who could my concept was that I wanted the students to get the idea of moving their own limited ideas of what they wanted to write out of the way and let inspiration come through. And now I would say move their ego out of the way and let more refined energies inform their work. And I was looking for someone having a terrible time finding a person, and I got a phone call from the founder of Seattle's Best Coffee, SBC Coffee, who lived on the island where I lived then, off of West Seattle. And his name is Jim Stewart, and he had a counselor whose name is Lori Meisel. And he called me, Jim did, out of the blue, and he said, my leadership trainer wants to talk to your class. Well, it turned out to be Lori Meisel, and my adventure girl spirit kicked in, and I said yes without having any idea what would happen or who he was. And he became this very important person in my life, and he is a counselor, but he does everything from a spiritual point of view. And he also is a hobbyist farmer with pigs and cows and chickens, so I called him the Holy Pig Farmer.
I see. Now, you describe some pretty weird and wonderful experiences in your book. What helped you decide that these things were really happening and not just your imagination?
I will cite Carl Jung, who was asked if he believed in God, and he said, no, I don't believe, I know. And when you experience these mystical experiences, they are so out of the norm for your normal, everyday reality. They feel different, you feel different, differently, and you, in my case, mostly they wake me up in the middle of the night, and so they're, I'm just trying to get a good night's sleep. It's certainly nothing I would be, worrying about trying to conjure up. But there is a sense of timelessness when you're having these experiences. With me, it's very visual, so I'm seeing what we would call a light body or a light being. There is the ones that are what I call the angelic ones. There's a peace and a joy that's so hard to explain, and you're not making that up. You can't make that up.
So, can you give us an example of one that particularly moved you?
Well, yes, the kind of grand slam is in the first chapter of the book, and it occurred, and I wasn't sleeping, I was driving. It was 3 days after my father died in 1992, and I was driving along up on Vashon Island where I lived. Beautiful late spring day, not a cloud in the sky, just plain of blue. And I look up, and the closest thing I can describe it to other people who haven't had this sort of thing happen to them, it's kind of like looking at a rainbow, where it's made out of light, but it's not really part of the reality that you're in, yet it's right there with you. That's kind of the sense of it. And there was his face, my father's face, filling the entire sky above me. And he was absolutely on fire with joy. It's beyond human happiness. And it was translucent, but very, very vivid. And he was just beaming. And I knew kind of intuitively that he was saying goodbye, and he was saying I'm okay, and obviously death is okay, because some part of him still was. But I wasn't going to tell anyone about it, just for the reasons you mentioned before, that people might think you're crazy. So I wasn't going to tell anyone. And then my sister called me. She lives down in Southern California on the beach where we were raised, and 1,000 miles away from where I was. She called me that evening to tell me that she had seen our father's face in the sky. So in this case, I had a witness.
Wow.
No way I could have imagined it, and I didn't.